Welcome everybody to the Lichfield and Tamworth Chamber of Commerce webinar in partnership with Lichfield District Council. My name's Chris Brewerton. I head up the Chamber in Lichfield and Tamworth, and we have with us today Jonathan Percival, Economic Development Officer at Lichfield District Council, and also Sophie Carroll, Projects and Funding Officer at Lichfield District Council. The event today is really all around the COVID support grants that have been released over the last couple of weeks, covering lockdown 2.0 and looking towards 2021 with the additional restrictions grant discussions as well. You'll see we have our Q&A box open, so following the presentation from Jonathan and from Sophie, there will be an opportunity to ask questions to the panel through the chat and the Q&A. If you can put your questions in the Q&A box, that's fantastic. If you've got any sort of more broader comments, please put in the chat, and we'll go from there. So I'm just going to share my screen with a quick introduction around the chamber, and then we'll pass over to Jonathan and Sophie. So John, Sophie, hope you're well, and we'll speak to you in just a moment. My screen sharing isn't working, so no worries. I will just talk about the presentation today. So essentially, yeah, we're obviously here to help support Lichfield and Tamworth businesses. In this case, it's the business grants in Lichfield, as mentioned. For those of you who sort of aren't aware of the Chamber of Commerce, we work under the Greater Birmingham Chambers, which is across various divisions: Birmingham, Brewerton, Cannock Chase, Lichfield and Tamworth, Solihull, Sutton Coldfield, and also themed chambers, including the Asian Business Chamber, the Commonwealth, Future Faces, and Transatlantic. Obviously, since lockdown in March, we've worked very closely with the council across all of our divisions, really, to really engage with businesses and encourage them to communicate and make them aware of various areas of advice and support that is available. Certainly recommend going onto our COVID-19 support grid, which is on the main Greater Birmingham website, and really gives a breakdown of support of grants as they change. I think we're on version 57 now, so our policy team have been hugely reactive to that side, and Jonathan and Sophie, I'm sure, will make note of the number of changes that happen so quickly in such a tough and fast changing environment. But certainly recommend looking at that COVID-19 support grid on our website. Not only does it include grants, it also includes areas for other finance that may be available if you're not eligible for grants from our partners, and also support from our various partners like the Growth Hub and the Skills Hub and various other organisations. In terms of support through the chamber itself, it's really a good opportunity to really make note to the support of our members, who have made an incredible attempt not only in their own businesses but also helping other businesses, both locally in Lichfield and in Tamworth, but across the whole chamber. Our relationship management team have made over 14,000 calls to businesses across Greater Birmingham Chamber, many of those in Lichfield and Tamworth, and we've hosted a wide range of webinars, support and advice sessions for our members, and a huge thanks to any of those members who are on the call, who are watching this later on, for your support. As always, we would say as well, please email kbm@birmingham-chamber.com. That's short for Keep Business Moving. Over 350 businesses have contacted that inbox for direct support from our policy team, and to give a really insight into some of the struggles and challenges they're facing for our lobbying activity. So with that, I will pass over to Jonathan. In terms of timescales, Jonathan, Sophie will do a quick presentation about the grants, and then there is an open Q&A available round about for 20-25 minutes, depending on how we go with the questions. So please do put any questions in the Q&A box, and we'll go from there. And Jonathan, over to you.
Thank you, Chris, and morning, everyone. So as Chris has outlined, as we came into lockdown 2.0, as a council, we were requested to administer, as part of central government support, 2 new grant schemes. Obviously, as England went into a tier system and then national restrictions as well. So I will now just share my screen to show a brief overview of the support that's available. So Sophie, if you'd like to start with the local restriction support grant, then I'll go on to the additional restrictions grant.
Perfect, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Next slide, please, Jonathan. So today I'm going to be talking you through the local restriction support grant. So this grant was originally for businesses that have been closed due to national restrictions on a 28-day rolling period. The government announced further support for this on the 5th of November. And to claim this, you have to be a business rates payer. So you have to pay rates to Lichfield District Council, and your name has to be the name on the rates bill to be able to be eligible for these grants. The business has to have been open and trading as usual on the 4th of November, and it has to be one of the types of businesses that has been instructed to close. If you have chosen to close, you won't be eligible for this grant. And we do have a list of all businesses that have been eligible. Government have put on the Gov.uk website a list of all those businesses that are eligible for this grant. Next slide, please. So how much can you receive? Businesses will be entitled to receive a grant for each eligible premise. So if you're a business owner and you have multiple different business units and you pay different rates on them, you will be eligible for each of those properties because each one will have a different rateable value. And you can see here all different rateable values, you get a different proportion. So if your rateable value is less than 15,000, you are able to claim for £1,334 for each 4-week period. And again, it goes up. So if you pay between 15 and 50,000, you get £2,000. And if your rateable value is 51,000 or above, you will be able to claim £3,000. As I said, you can find a list of all the businesses. So it's mainly pubs that have had to close, hairdressers, beauty salons, personal care that had to close for the national restrictions, community halls, libraries. There's a whole raft of different businesses that had to close. So again, please just make sure you check that you're eligible for this and go online. We've also got a list of businesses that are eligible on the Lichfield District Council. We've broken it down really easy for you to read on there. And again, the application process is all online. We've tried to make it as easy as possible because I know there's been a lot of guidance and a lot of forms to fill out over these past 9 months. So it's all online. Our revenues team are on hand to help you. If you're halfway through the application, please just give us a call and we'll be able to help you. One thing we do ask is just take your time with the application. It asks you a lot of detailed questions about your business rates number. Please make sure that you get everything right and you upload all the correct documents, because that will just mean that we can process your claim a lot quicker and we can get the money in your bank as soon as possible to be able to help pay your rents, pay your wages and get your business back up and running.
So alongside the local restrictions support grant, there is the additional restrictions grant. This has been given to local authorities to work alongside the local restrictions support grant as a more of a discretionary scheme. The amount that's been allocated per local authority is being calculated by £20 per head of the local population. So as a council, what we did was we looked at the local key sectors, evidence base of that, which businesses, areas and sectors and activities have been supported previously in the initial lockdown period, and with current general national support as well, alongside as well the inquiries we've received. So with our allocation, which is just over £2 million, we have broken it down into 3 different strands to be released or operated in 3 phases. So that is the majority of the funding going towards direct grant funding, which opened yesterday at lunchtime, having been approved by Cabinet. Skills and training support in early 2021. We're currently just sorting out the support in that respect, and a startup grant scheme as well, which will start in March 2021, which will work alongside, which will take over from our current small business grant scheme. All funding needs to be allocated by or administered by March 2022, so it's quite a short time frame. And now I'll move on to more information about that direct grant funding that's available. So this will be a one-off £7,500 grant payment aimed at micro and small businesses within the following business types, looking at businesses involved in the direct supply chain for businesses and sectors which have had to close due to local national restrictions, commercial premises, which is a local franchise, and a parent company which has previously received a coronavirus grant. So local franchise may have not received any support in that respect. Sectors businesses within sectors such as events, arts or entertainment, rural or agriculture. For rural and agriculture, it has to be businesses which do operate within that sector and not businesses which operate from a diversified rural unit. So it has to be the traditional agriculture activities. And also home-based businesses that are where it's the only source of employment and business income. As part of this, there is some national criteria that we've had to meet. There has been that discretion, but there is that criteria as well. So businesses must have been trading the day before the 4th of November. Companies must not be in administration, insolvency, or where striking off notice has been given. Companies must have seen a loss of income of more than 30% compared to the same period last year. We're going off the period of September to November, so 2019 compared to 2020, and businesses that haven't received support from the local restriction support grant. We put that criteria in place because we wanted to spread the support across the district and different business types. As we have previously said, this scheme works alongside the local restriction support grant. The process shall be first come, first serve, as there is a restricted amount we have to provide, and for more information and online applications, it's on the council website. The skills and training support and startup grant scheme are the two phases to come following or during the direct grant funding, but at a later date. So the skills and training support is being developed in consultation with skills and training providers, just to show where barriers are and the gaps are in support. So it's just to complement what's already on offer. And we're just working out the precise details of that. There's also the startup grant scheme as well. As mentioned, it will commence in March 21 when our previous scheme ends, and it will be for pre-start businesses, so people who have been made redundant or who are economically inactive, who are looking to potentially start up their own business, as Lichfield does have quite an entrepreneurial culture. These grants, they'll be provided with £3,000 grants with no match funding required, and the scheme shall operate through the financial year, so March 21 to 22, with quarterly rounds. And as part of being successful, an output must be creating an employment opportunity, whether that be one full-time employment or an apprenticeship. Further details shall be provided soon, as this is being administered at a later date. We knew that the direct grant funding was needed immediately, so we prioritised that, hence why we pushed this information out quite earlier. And the two later phases, we are still just clarifying some details on. There'll be a smooth transition, and as well communication will be given throughout. So that's just a brief update on the two different schemes that we are administrating as a local authority. But if anyone has any specific questions following this Q&A, then please do get in contact with the generic economic development inbox. Thank you, Chris.
Can I just add quickly, Chris, that all those grants that we've just mentioned, they are grants, they're not loans. You don't have to pay them back. We've had quite a lot of questions about people worrying about having to pay it back, and they've already got lots of bills. So they are grants. You do not have to pay them back whatsoever, but they are taxable and they are subject to state aid conditions as well. So please bear that in mind when applying for these grants.
They both have online application forms as well. So both details about this criteria and the schemes and the application forms are on the council website.
Jonathan, Sophie, thanks very much. Yeah, and I think as we were talking just before, Sophie, and yeah, it's that clarity of communication when you're filling out those forms is really important. So I very much welcome questions in the Q&A screen. I know from the participants we've got various sort of different types of businesses that have been affected in different ways. So please do add to the question and answer panel. I just wanted to pick up a few questions first and foremost. Probably to Jonathan first, I suppose. This is not, and we know, I know having spoken extensively to you in the council over the last 7 months, 7 or 8 months, perhaps a lot longer than that, in terms of that grant funding and that direct funding. How important do you feel this is to get this funding out as soon as possible for the last few weeks and really, focus on that direct help first, and then moving on to the startup and the skills side of things?
I think it is really important. It has taken a while to create the policy from the guidance given because it was so open. But as it's a discretionary scheme, we want to make sure that it is got correct criteria for ourselves to administer quickly and get the money out, but as well meet and identify the right people to support. We are finding that businesses do want the money now, and that we need to get it out as quickly as possible, as some businesses and some business types have been ineligible, but as well the tier system as well, the national restrictions that have come in place, as we are in tier 3 currently, we need to consider businesses that are still restricted, but as well within their supply chain as well. So we have been working quite quickly, and this has been a priority to get the money out as quickly as possible.
And I'm sure there's a lot of work gone behind the scenes to make sure that happens as soon as. We've had a question from Matt Clay, Matt from Lichfield Garrick. I hope you're well, Matt. Do we, if we could answer that live, brilliant. Do we need to apply for each 28-day period restrictions go on for, or does your initial application cover this?
Do you want me to take that, Jonathan?
Yes, please.
So I think we haven't had any guidance from government yet. We're still waiting on whether we will need each individual application or whether the first one will cover it. So our advice at the moment is just to make sure you put that second one in, that third one in, that fourth one in, just so we've got all the information there. So if the government do turn around and say you need to apply, we've got everything there ready to go. But we're hoping that it will just be the one application process and we can just press go and get the grants out to you. So yes, please apply again, just for now until you hear anything differently from the council.
Perfect. And as you say, you know, I know you've told sort of anecdotal stories of, you know, of bank details being incorrect and one or two sort of issues, and that's where the sort of heavy admin comes in. So yeah, so if I suppose you'd want to reiterate is get that application as right as you can, as soon as you can, really. Is the key. Okay, we've got some other questions coming through. Thank you for that question, Matt. We've got Steve Dell. Is there direct funding grant aimed at businesses who aren't eligible for the grants related to business rates?
I'll take this one. Right. Obviously the local restriction support grant is directed at businesses which have been affected by local and national restrictions. The direct grant funding, we've set the criteria for the different eligible business types within the presentation we've just done, but we have based that on working alongside the local restriction support grant, but as well previous support provided. So it relates to businesses which haven't received support from the local restriction support grant, but some obviously may pay business rates. So that's not being included within the criteria, but obviously you do have to meet that criteria of eligible business types, as well as obviously the set criteria met by national government. So it's all on the website. But if it's a specific query, then please do just email us and we can clarify that for you.
And again, this is sort of a new sort of period of support following on from the previous support that's been given through the course of the coronavirus sort of crisis. So that won't have an effect necessarily on the applications. Okay. We've got another one from Osman. Osman, how are you? Is there any further support available for takeaways based within Lichfield City Centre? We rely on the late night weekend trade from pubs and clubs, and since they've been shut, our business is down by around half. So yeah, further thoughts on that, Jonathan?
I'll take this one then. So the current support available, as we mentioned, is local restriction support grant and the additional restrictions grant scheme. We aren't aware of any additional funding becoming available. For takeaways, obviously it depends on if you meet the criteria for local restriction as well, the additional restrictions as well. But if any further support does become available within the future, we aren't aware or know of anything as of yet, obviously, because this is a very much a rolling pandemic that we're in, and obviously we don't know how long it's going to be. But if any further information or support does come out, we will send the information out communication-wise as quickly as possible. We're in communication with central government weekly at the moment anyway, in terms of monitoring as well as questions and queries, because you do have those unique queries within the guidance which need clarifying for every different local authority. So we are kept in contact quite regularly. So we just need to, if any further support does come available, we'll let businesses know as soon as possible.
One thing I would also suggest for companies in a similar position to yours, Osman, is we have a business directory on the Lichfield District website, and that's been incredibly popular. We're listing all businesses within the district that have changed their opening times or they're offering a different service, and we really want to help and promote you. So if you send an email to the economic development email with your business details, if you've got any special offers on or anything like that, we can add you online to our business directory to try and help boost trade for you.
Thanks, Sophie. Yeah, bring it on to that with the hashtag Love Local campaign that the Lichfield sort of council have put in. Just give us a bit of an insight into how that has worked. I know that yourself and Tasmin and Jonathan have worked hard on that over the last few months as well, and supported by many other partners. So yeah, give us a bit of information on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the beginning of lockdown, way back when in March, we were given some money by the government to make sure that when we did reopen for the first time in June, that we were ready to do so safely as a district. Obviously, Lichfield is very beautiful with lots of cobbled streets and the cathedral, so we were really cautious not to make it too strange. We didn't want barriers up, we didn't want it to be different. We wanted people to come back into the city and feel safe. So the main thing that we've done is spent money on a communications campaign, and our information officer Tasmin, who's been helping support the businesses on the ground, going into the shops in the district, in the city centre, Chasetown, Burntwood, making sure that everybody's understanding these ever-changing COVID rules and trying to keep up with all the guidance. But we've spent a lot of time and money on the marketing campaign to make sure that when people do come into the district, they're shopping safely, hands, face, space. If there's a queue at a shop, you come back later on. The shop's still going to be there, it's still going to be open. But making sure that when you are visiting the district, we really want to help you support local businesses. So that's why we created the business directory. We got that up online to let people know what shops were open, who was closed, who's changed their opening times. As I say, we really want to boost the local market, but we want to make sure that everybody's doing so safely, so that we don't have a peak in numbers again, because it will be reassessed on the 16th of December. So fingers crossed, we all work really hard, we all stay really safe, support our local businesses, and we will see those numbers come down on the 16th. And I think we've been really surprised. A lot of businesses have diversified. They've got online, they've been selling on Facebook. We've been trying to help them get the confidence to get onto social media. Even though you're closed, you can still contact all your customers, let them know what you're up to, what you're selling. You can do click and collect still, you can offer takeaways. So it's been great to see so many businesses really drive that and keep that going. And again, making sure that everybody's safe at the same time.
And that's so important, isn't it? And again, yeah, if you've got any further questions, advice, thoughts, and by all means, speak to the council, speak to the chamber, speak to other businesses. Will always help. And another person to speak to certainly is Lee Giblin, who's asked a question as well. I know Lee owns a number of establishments in the city centre, and he's very passionate about helping the local sort of business community with her links to the Lichfield bid. So. Just had a question with regards to hospitality. Some businesses have been operating a takeaway service. Does this affect them applying for grants? As in majority of cases, revenue has still been much lower than when operating normally.
Yeah, absolutely. So even though you have been operating a takeaway, you can still apply for the local closed restrictions grant, because the main proportion of your business has been affected. And that is something that's certainly come up at the very beginning for us. I know me and Jonathan had a lot of conversations about this, and thankfully government confirmed that you can absolutely still apply, because the big chunk of your business has been affected. You've just been able to diversify and make a little bit of an income from it. Okay,
brilliant. Yeah, and I'd certainly encourage you to sort of pass that message out to other establishments, perhaps in the area who aren't aware of that case. That's a really important point, and we of course want to encourage diversification, encourage businesses continuing to trade where safe and where possible. But as you say, Sophie, making sure that if they've still been affected, which they obviously have, they get that support, which is vital. So another question from Paul R. We have not closed but suffered a 40 to 60% drop in trade. Does this apply to us?
It depends. Obviously, the different support available financially is dependent on certain criteria. So Paul will need a few more details about what your business type is, how you're currently operating, how long you've been trading for. We're happy to have that conversation separately after this webinar or workshop, and then we're able to establish which support you're available or is available for yourself to apply to.
Wonderful. Yes, so certainly, Paul, I would certainly get in touch with the team either through the website or directly with Jonathan and Sophie after this call. Just looking at the other questions, there's some good questions coming in. Another one is is it possible to arrange, I suppose, similar to Paul there, is it possible to arrange a conversation with Lichfield Council as our company situation is very, very unique and we want to make sure we've applied to all that we are entitled to? I think that's the absolute key there, isn't it? To have that discussion, organise a date or time to speak with the council. And yeah, I suppose probably on that, Jonathan or Sophie, just give us I suppose there has been some examples of businesses perhaps that weren't aware initially or haven't reached out, but have then reached out and found that they are eligible. Have you found that that's the case? Is that you know, that certain companies have perhaps picked up funding that they weren't initially aware of?
Yes, we have. So what kind of going back to the additional restrictions of grant, even though it was launched yesterday lunchtime, we have had a few similar business type applying really, such as obviously we know Lichfield, especially Lichfield City, is very well known for its events and festivals. Obviously this year, due to the current restrictions, they're not able to trade, or traders aren't able to benefit from that. So we are finding a few businesses who haven't received previous support, either from them being smaller pockets of funding, such as say a Prosecco trailer that goes to events and festivals. They haven't received much support due to the fact that they may not have a commercial premises, don't pay business rates or a rateable value. So they are obviously part of the supply chain, or impacted up from businesses or sectors that have been directly impacted. So they're able to apply. We've had quite a few of those in overnight. Other things as well, I think rural and agriculture businesses sectors, that's an interesting one. It came up in the cabinet meeting on Tuesday when the additional restrictions grant policy was approved or adopted. They don't, if these commercial premises are used within rural areas for agricultural use, they are exempt from business rates. So they're not, it's not that they get rate relief, they're just not included at all really because of the use. It's a very historic policy or criteria that I understand it. So we accept obviously Lichfield with a balance of urban and rural areas. A lot of rural agriculture businesses have missed out, as well as supplying a lot of local restaurants, retailers as well, in the hospitality sector. So we've included those as well. So we've had a few of those coming in as well. So we have had to look at an evidence-based approach on how we've created this discretionary scheme to support those businesses that have been impacted, but not directly by having retail or commercial premises, but in the supply chain as well, because obviously Lichfield's economy is quite heavy in terms of hospitality and leisure, but also supply chains to these large sectors as well.
Absolutely, no, that's again, that's an important area, and he's making sure that some of these grants do reach those hard to reach areas. Sean from Flamingo Events has asked another question. He was called Santa Claus initially, but I didn't want to make note of that. But he has dropped that over. So no, that's great, Sean. I know your business has been hugely affected by it, and I think on the question around those business rates and work from home and limited company, so you've really fell through the gaps, and we're aware of your real struggles. I think absolutely vital that you set up a call with the council and look to potentially explore where you can get help. And I'm sure Jonathan and Sophie, well, I know they will be trying their absolute best to those funding opportunities that you may be entitled to. I wanted to just ask another question around the home-based businesses, like Sean said there. I spoke to a company earlier this week who were a holistic sort of therapy business, and actually didn't seem to be aware of the opportunities that they had for some of the funding. So how often or how many do you feel perhaps have fallen through the gaps, and how important is it again to stress to get in touch with the right people and find out some of these more discretionary grants?
I think it is really important. You do have those unique businesses within larger sectors which have fallen through the gaps, especially obviously I think the national government wanted to include a lot of businesses who are home-based within the self-employment income support scheme. Obviously due to the criteria, a lot have fallen through that. So we have tried to find that balance. Although £2 million, obviously with the discretionary scheme, does sound a lot, it isn't compared to the amount of businesses within the district, especially those who haven't received support or not enough support really. So we have had to try and find that balance with supporting the various types of businesses, but also home based as well, because I know a lot haven't been eligible for the self-employment, or I've had to look down the loan scheme as well with the bounce back loans, the coronavirus interruption scheme loans as well. So it is important, especially those unique businesses, just to get in touch with us separately. I know obviously Santa Claus is busy on the 24th of December and the 25th, so if he gets in touch earlier, it will help him and ourselves. But as well, I think it is basically get in touch with us, give us a bit more background about your business and also what support you have tried to look for. You may, unfortunately, still fall through the gaps. We have had to try and make the criteria as broad as possible, but obviously restrictions within it, because it is quite a small pot, as well as administrating as well. We'd have to go through the different applications and supportive evidence as well, quite a bit, but as well, we'll try to cover as much ground as possible with them to direct them in the relevant areas or relevant places to look for the support as well, obviously through the chamber with your membership and other partners as well that we work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned obviously moving on to the skills and the sort of the startup grants that are granted further down the line, but interesting to see that that's part of the fund, and how important do you see that being, as we looking to the future after the announcements yesterday and all, around the vaccine and very much a hope and a real want from so many businesses and so many organisations to move forward. How important do you see that funding for the area? I know Lichfield specifically is a really strong place for startup businesses, so that must be a key part that will obviously help promote, and the council will roll out into March next year.
I think, although I've talked a lot at the moment, so if everyone's sick of my dulcet tones, please let me know. But we will look the additional restrictions grant. The guidance did state that you can include, obviously, put support towards additional business support schemes. So we didn't just want it towards direct grant funding for currently existing businesses, but as well those businesses who have taken on new staff who have been made redundant or looking to redeploy or reskill, hence the skills and training support, and support them in terms of their skills and training budget, which may have taken a hit. So although we haven't set the criteria and how that will look as of yet, we are looking down that route of supporting businesses who have had to take on new staff or employees, upskill themselves really, and to really help towards that training budget that may have had to be depleted due to less income or less trade coming in. The startup scheme as well, as we mentioned, we are obviously, a lot of the support is for current businesses, and we do want to help those people who have been made redundant or looking to become self-employed, had an idea at their current employment for a while but not branched out. Obviously at the moment it may not be the relevant time with the uncertainty, but obviously next year, as we go in with obviously the news of the vaccine as well as the support available, we thought we'd carry on with our small business grant scheme, but in a new iteration, looking at Free Start and also that apprenticeship aspect as well, and getting more young people into employment. There is the Kickstart scheme, but obviously a lot of young people are leaving college or further or higher education, and we want to get them back into employment. So any benefits we can make, or working alongside national benefits as well for apprenticeships, then we want to really look at that as well. So we're trying to find that range of support and that balance to try and focus on not just existing businesses, but the overall local business population as well, and the employees within it.
Great, Jonathan. That's really good, and so we look forward to seeing how that pans out. Hopefully, as we go through Christmas and into 2021. Conscious of the time, and if there's any more questions, do please share on the Q&A or the chat. I've hopefully see. Oh yes, Darren from Hayward. Yeah, great question, recorded correct, and it will be sent out and shared for those delegates and companies that are registered and haven't been able to attend today, and we will be sharing it across our channels and the council's channels, and encourage everyone on the call today to tell people you sort of that perhaps you realise perhaps haven't had that support or would welcome to see this presentation. So I think we'll leave it. We'll leave it that. We'll share the contact details with Jonathan and Sophie on the back of the email sent with the video and the the further sort of support available. We'll drop over an email with that as well. And thank you, everybody. Huge thanks to everybody. I can see Lee as a final chat. Regarding is to pass on to their neighbour. Great idea. Pass it on to people that you know, that you're aware, and the same might not be available. And as Sophie said, support your local community, support the centre of Lichfield. You know, we all think a huge amount of the business and the community that is within that area, but indeed across the entire district, whether they're in the centre or not. There's some fantastic companies, some fantastic efforts gone on across the community with so many partners and organisations, and we really hope that continues. Hashtag love local, as has been said quite a lot over the last few months. It really is important, and we really look forward to hopefully seeing you all again soon. And thanks again.